Ethan Hayes had always loved quiet nights. His small apartment outside Seattle wasn't anything special, just a living room with warm lights. It's a tiny kitchen and one bedroom, but it was his safe space, a place where silence wasn't heavy. On this rainy night, the world outside was dark and cold, but inside, the atmosphere felt calm. He made a cup of vanilla tea, turned off most of the lights, and sat near the window to watch the raindrops slide down the glass. It was his little end-of-day ritual, something that helped him forget the stress of work and the loneliness he rarely admitted to feeling. Before moving here, Ethan had a bigger life. A busy job, coworkers, weekend dinners with friends. But after his company downsized and he lost everything familiar, he decided to start over. Seattle gave him a chance to reset, but new beginnings are not always loud and exciting. Sometimes they are just quiet and a bit empty. He lived alone since arriving 6 months ago. No family nearby. No close friends yet. He didn't complain, he just accepted it. He often told himself good things take time. Still, nights like this reminded him how long time could feel, just as he set his empty mug in the sink and switched off the remaining lamp. A sudden knock echoed from the front door. It wasn't loud or aggressive, just soft, like the person knocking was unsure. Ethan froze. He checked the clock. 11:57 p.m. Not a normal time for visitors. He ran through his mind no deliveries, no expected visits, no friends who knew his address well enough to show up late. Confusion turned into a hint of worry. Rain continued hitting the windows, and that small knock replayed in his head, urging him to move. He stepped carefully toward the door and looked through the peephole. A young woman stood outside, arms wrapped around herself, shivering slightly. She was wearing a light beige sweater that looked too thin for the weather, and her hair was a bit messy from the rain. Her eyes were lowered like she was thinking about leaving. Ethan hesitated only a moment, then opened the door halfway. She looked up, and Ethan recognized her, the new neighbor who had moved into the apartment next to his a few weeks ago. He had seen her in passing, mailroom, parking lot, hallway, always alone, always quiet. They had exchanged small smiles, but no real words. Tonight, she seemed different, nervous, yet hopeful. "I'm sorry," she said softly, voice warm but shaky. "I didn't want to bother you this late." Ethan offered a kind look. "It's okay. Are you all right?" She breathed out a little laugh, more like a sigh. "My power went out, and I really don't like the dark." She held a small cardboard box in her hands. "I tried finding candles, but I only have this one, and it's broken." Ethan stepped aside without overthinking. "You can come in if you want. It's warm here." She nodded gently and stepped inside, letting go of the cold hallway behind her. As she entered, she looked around like she was studying the space. How cozy it felt despite its simplicity. Photos of mountains hung on the wall. A stack of books sat on the coffee table. A soft glow from a small nightlight warmed the room. "Thank you," she whispered. "I didn't know where else to go." "I'm Ethan," he introduced, offering a friendly smile. "I'm Lena," she replied. Lena Brooks. Her name fit her. Patient and soft around the edges. Ethan motioned toward the couch. "Make yourself comfortable. I'll see if I have some spare candles." He walked to the kitchen drawer, found 2 unused candles from a forgotten home decor purchase, and placed them on the table. Lena watched him with a grateful smile. "It's nice," she said softly. "Your place. It feels safe." Ethan wasn't used to compliments, especially ones that touched him unexpectedly. "I'm glad," he replied. "Safety is rare." Lena hugged her sweater a little tighter, like she understood those words too well. She sat down carefully, as if afraid she would disturb something precious. The rain outside grew heavier, making the apartment feel even more like a peaceful shelter. After a short silence, she spoke again. "I moved here from Chicago," she said, warming her hands near the small candlelight. "I thought distance would help me breathe again." Ethan didn't ask for details. The pain in her voice already said enough. "I know what starting over feels like," he said. "Sometimes it's not as exciting as people think." Her eyes met his, curious, sad, thankful. "It's nice to have someone understand without asking a million questions," she said. Ethan nodded. Some stories don't need questions. They just need time. Something in his voice caught her attention. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "You live alone too?" she asked gently. He nodded. "That must get tough sometimes." "It does," he admitted quietly. "But tonight, I don't mind it." The warm honesty in his words lingered in the air, creating a bond neither expected. The candlelight flickered, casting soft shadows on Lena's face. She looked around again, slower this time, appreciating the calmness. There was a softness in her expression that hadn't been there at the door. Like she was letting herself relax for the first time in a while. She breathed deeply. "I didn't want to show up unannounced. But when the lights went out, I panicked. I keep telling myself I'm strong, but some nights remind me I'm still trying to heal." Ethan listened, his heart quietly tightening. He wanted to say something comforting, but she continued before he could. "I didn't think anyone would open their door to me. Not at this hour. I'm glad I was here to do it," he said simply. That simple sentence changed something in the room. Not romantic. Not dramatic. Just connection. The rain eased a little, turning from heavy storm to gentle drizzle. It almost felt like the world outside was calming because of what happened inside. Lena stood up slowly, her eyes wandering again toward the door. Ethan felt a sudden worry, afraid she would leave before the moment could settle. "I think I should let you sleep," she whispered. "You came for warmth," Ethan replied. "You can stay a bit longer if you want." She paused. Her breathing slowed. She looked at him with a fragile smile. "I didn't just come for warmth," she admitted. "I came because I didn't want to be alone tonight." Those words hit Ethan deeper than she could ever know. For months he thought loneliness was something he had to accept. Now a stranger neighbor had just spoken the same truth. Lena walked closer, just a step. Her voice softer now. "Thank you for opening the door." Ethan nodded, and for a moment, neither moved nor spoke. Something new existed in the silence. Beginning neither planned. A shift they couldn't ignore. And as Lena finally turned, hand resting gently on the doorknob, Ethan felt something inside him say, "Don't let this moment fade." But nothing left his lips. He simply watched. She stepped into the hallway. The dim light above flickered, and she looked back one last time. Like a silent message was being passed without words. Then she disappeared into the quiet. Ethan stood in the doorway long after she was gone, listening to the rain. His apartment looked the same as always, but it didn't feel the same. Because now it held the memory of a late-night knock. That might be the start of something he wasn't ready for, but desperately needed. Rain still tapped against the windows when Lena returned to the couch. She sat quietly, holding the warm mug Ethan had given her. The power in her apartment was still out, and though she could have gone back, something in her chose to stay. Ethan noticed the way she sat straight but tense, like someone who wasn't used to staying anywhere long enough to feel safe. He sat across from her, not too close, giving her room to speak if she wanted. The candlelight between them created a soft glow, turning shadows into something gentle instead of frightening. They didn't talk immediately. Sometimes silence is the beginning of honesty. Lena finally broke it. "I left Chicago 2 months ago," she said, staring into her tea. "I wanted a new start, but starting over feels lonely when no one knows your past." Ethan sipped his drink, listening carefully. He could tell she wasn't just talking about moving, she was talking about rebuilding herself. "Seattle can be quiet," he said. "Sometimes too quiet." Lena looked up. "You moved here recently too, right?" 6 months ago, he said. "After my company shut down, I thought a smaller life might be peaceful." He paused, then admitted, "Sometimes it just feels empty." Lena nodded, eyes softening. "People assume new places fix everything, but you still bring your old heart with you." Her words reached him in a way he didn't expect. Ethan wasn't used to conversations that carried meaning. Most people kept things surface level, but Lena spoke like every word was chosen carefully, as if she didn't want to waste the chance to be real. She set her mug down and pulled her knees up slightly, trying to get comfortable. I was engaged, she said suddenly, voice quiet. We spent years together. I planned my future around him. Then one day, it just ended. Not loudly, just ended. She rubbed her thumb along the ceramic cup. I didn't want to rebuild where everything reminded me of what I lost. Ethan didn't rush to respond. Instead, he watched her eyes, not broken, but still healing. I'm sorry, he said, sincerely. That kind of ending stays with you. It does, she whispered, and I hate that it still does. The room fell silent again, but this time, the silence wasn't heavy. It was understanding. Ethan felt a pull toward her, not romantic in a dramatic way, but gentle, like he had found someone who spoke the same emotional language. You don't talk like you just moved here, Ethan finally said. You talk like someone who's been searching for a place to breathe. Lena smiled faintly. Maybe I'm searching for people too. Places are easier to find. She shifted slightly closer, though still on the opposite couch. The distance between them felt purposeful, respectful. She didn't want to rush anything, and neither did he. There was a softness to the moment that made both of them cautious. As if speaking too boldly might break whatever was forming, Ethan leaned back, letting the lamp cast warm light on them. Before you moved next door, I barely spoke to anyone. I worked, came home, slept. Life was simple, but silent. Do you like simple? She asked. Sometimes, he said, but silence gets loud eventually. Lena looked at him like she understood that better than anyone. She wrapped her hands around her mug again and whispered, Tonight doesn't feel silent. He didn't know how to respond without revealing too much, so he just smiled gently. The rain softened outside, becoming a light drizzle. The room felt like a small world disconnected from everything else. Lena's eyes moved to his bookshelf. You read a lot, she said. That's a good sign. Ethan laughed lightly. Sometimes books are easier than people. Sometimes, she agreed, then added softly, but not tonight. There was something about the way she said it, quiet but sincere, that made Ethan feel seen. Not admired, not judged, just seen. It had been a long time since anyone looked at him that way. She placed her mug down and stood, walking slowly to the window. She watched the rain without speaking. Ethan joined her after a moment, standing a respectful distance away. Do you ever feel like life keeps restarting until you finally choose something for yourself? She asked, eyes still on the glass. I think life gives chances, he said. But we don't always take them. She turned slightly, enough to face him. Maybe we're afraid of choosing the wrong thing again. Ethan met her eyes, or afraid of choosing something real. That sentence lingered in the air. Lena looked down, as if afraid to hold his gaze too long. I should go, she whispered. I didn't mean to stay this long. You're welcome here, Ethan said. Whenever you need to sit out the dark. Lena stepped closer to him, not close enough to touch, but close enough to feel something shift. Her voice lowered, softer than before. It wasn't just the dark. I could have handled that. Ethan's heart beat faster, but he stayed still. He didn't want to assume. He didn't want to rush. Then why did you come? He asked quietly. She opened her mouth, but no answer came. She looked down, shook her head slightly, and backed toward the door. I don't know yet, she whispered. And maybe that's the part that scares me. She put on her coat slowly, as if giving herself extra seconds to decide whether to stay or leave. Her hand rested on the doorknob for a long moment. Ethan didn't step forward. He didn't reach for her. He simply said, Good night, Lena. She looked up, eyes soft and uncertain. Good night, Ethan. Thank you for tonight. Then she stepped out into the hallway. Closing the door gently behind her, Ethan stood there long after she left, staring at the empty space she had occupied. The apartment felt quieter again, but not in the way it used to. It felt like something had been opened, not taken. He blew out the candle, sat back on his couch, and stared at the door. He didn't know where this connection was going, or if it would continue. But one thing felt undeniable. This night wasn't just small talk between neighbors. It was the beginning of something neither of them knew how to name. The morning after Lena left, Ethan woke up with a strange feeling that something small but important had shifted in his life. The apartment looked the same, the coffee tasted the same. The sky outside was gray and calm, but nothing felt as quiet as before. He kept expecting another knock, another soft voice, another shared moment. He didn't even realize he was listening for footsteps in the hallway. But days passed, and Lena didn't return. He saw signs of her life, her car leaving early. Soft footsteps down the stairs. A grocery bag left outside her door, but she never stopped to talk. She waved politely if they crossed paths, but the warmth from that night was gone, replaced by distance that didn't feel accidental. It felt like she was protecting herself. Ethan didn't want to push her. He didn't want to seem expectant or needy. But he couldn't shake the memory of her voice saying she didn't want to be alone. One evening, he came home late after a long meeting. He saw Lena sitting alone on the building's front steps. She wore headphones but wasn't listening to anything. The cord wasn't plugged into her phone. Her posture was slouched, hands tucked into her sleeves. She looked like someone holding herself together. Ethan approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. "Hey," he said softly. She looked up, forcing a tired smile. "Hey, long day." "Yeah," he said. "Yours." She nodded, then shrugged. "Just trying to keep my mind busy." He sat 2 steps below her, leaving space. "You've been avoiding me." Lena didn't deny it. She wrapped her arms around her legs and rested her chin on her knees. "I needed time to think." "About what?" Ethan asked. She hesitated, picking at a thread on her sweater. "About whether I should let someone close again. I told myself this move was a break from emotional connections. A break from trusting too fast." Ethan understood. "You're afraid of repeating the past." She nodded slowly. "I don't want to hurt someone just because I'm still trying to heal. I don't want someone to feel like a temporary bandage." Ethan stayed quiet, letting her speak at her own pace. "You were kind," she continued. "You didn't ask for anything. You just listened. That felt safe, and I haven't felt safe around someone in a long time. It scared me." The honesty in her voice pulled something inside him. He wanted to reassure her, to say she didn't need to run. But he knew pushing could do more harm. "I don't want anything from you," Ethan said gently. "I just want you to breathe without fear. If being distant helps you, I'll respect it." Lena looked at him, eyes softening. "But distance doesn't help me. It just feels familiar." That admission hung between them. The wind brushed past, carrying fallen leaves across the pavement. Ethan spoke carefully. "We don't have to define anything. We don't have to rush anything. We can just exist in the same space without expectations." Lena lowered her gaze. "Sometimes that sounds easier than it is. People always end up wanting more." He nodded. "And sometimes people end up wanting less." She blinked, surprised by the balance in his words. Most people she knew wanted answers or promises. Ethan offered space. "I'm trying to protect myself," she whispered. "I know," he said. "Just don't protect yourself from the good things, too." Lena looked away, tears forming, though none fell. "I don't know how to be close without hurting someone. I don't know how to show up without disappearing again." Ethan wanted to reach out, but held his hands still. The restraint itself said more than touch. "You don't have to choose anything today," he said. "Just don't shut the door completely." She breathed out slowly. "I don't want to." A car pulled into the parking lot, headlights sweeping across them. She stood up quickly, brushing off her jeans. "I should go," she said again, voice quieter. "Thank you for not making this harder." She took a step toward the entrance, but Ethan called softly, "Lena." She paused, turning halfway. Her expression was unsure. But her eyes didn't hold the same distance as earlier. "You don't have to go through everything alone," he said. Her lips parted like she wanted to reply. But she didn't. She just gave a small, fragile smile and continued inside. Ethan stayed on the steps long after she disappeared into the hallway. Later that week, they crossed paths again, this time in the building's hallway. Lena held grocery bags, hair pulled up, looking exhausted. Something in her silence felt heavier than before. "Do you need help?" Ethan asked. "I'm okay," she replied softly, though her hands shook slightly from the weight. He didn't push. He simply walked beside her until she reached her door. She paused before unlocking it, eyes lingering on him as if she wanted to say more but didn't know how. "Ethan," she said quietly. "Yes." She hesitated. "I'm sorry if I made things confusing. I'm just trying to keep my heart in one piece. I'm scared of losing control again." His voice was steady. "You don't need to apologize for protecting yourself." She closed her eyes for a moment, then spoke more quietly. "But sometimes I think staying away from everything only makes me more lost." "That happens," Ethan said. "Isolation looks like healing until it's just loneliness." Something in that sentence hit her deeply. She swallowed hard, then whispered, "I don't want to repeat the past, but I also don't want to run from the present." She looked at him one last time, then opened her door slowly. "Good night, Ethan," she said. "Good night, Lena." She stepped inside, closing the door gently. Ethan stood in the hallway, staring at the empty space where she'd been, feeling a mixture of hope and uncertainty. This wasn't heartbreak. It was something more complicated to people on the edge of a connection. Both afraid to step forward, both afraid to step back. Ethan walked to his apartment, realizing something quietly painful sometimes. The hardest moments aren't the ones filled with tears or arguments. Sometimes the hardest moments are when two people care, but don't know how to take the next step. Days passed after their hallway encounter. Ethan could feel the space Lena kept between them slowly shrinking, though neither of them said anything. The rain had stopped for a while, replaced by crisp autumn air that smelled of fallen leaves and distant fires. He went through his routine as usual: work, quiet evenings, tea by the window, but now there was a constant expectation in his chest. Not for dramatic events, not for grand gestures, but for the small, human connections that mattered more than anything. One night, the wind howled and rain pounded on the windows again. The storm felt different from previous ones, heavier, more urgent. Ethan sat by his window, listening to it. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. The apartment felt alive and tense, like the world outside was echoing the storm within him. Then he heard a soft, hesitant knock. His heart leaped. The memory of the first knock, the first night Lena appeared in his apartment, rushed back like a tide. He jumped up, not expecting anyone to come, and moved quickly to the door. There she stood, soaked by the rain, hair plastered against her face, jacket drenched. Her cheeks were red from the cold, and her eyes glistened with emotion. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice trembling. "I thought I could keep my distance, but I keep ending up here." Ethan didn't say anything immediately. He simply stepped aside and opened the door fully, inviting her in. Lena stepped inside slowly, dripping water onto the mat, holding herself as if bracing for rejection, or perhaps fearing she had come too far. But Ethan didn't step back. He didn't judge. He didn't demand answers. He just let her in. The apartment smelled faintly of tea and warm candles, a safe and familiar place. Ethan led her to the couch. She sank into it, her hands clutching the damp fabric of her sweater. He handed her a towel and a dry blanket, but she barely noticed. She just looked at him, eyes soft but filled with something she didn't yet have words for. I don't know why I came," she admitted. "I thought keeping distance was the best way to stay safe. But tonight, I couldn't stay away." Ethan smiled softly, letting the silence fill the room. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't forced. It was just a pause between two people who had been circling each other, unsure of how to take the next step. "You don't have to explain," he said. "You just needed to be here. That's enough." She exhaled, the tension in her shoulders melting slightly. "I've been holding back for too long," she whispered. "Afraid of being hurt. Afraid of hurting someone else." "You won't hurt me," Ethan said simply. "We don't have to rush anything. Not tonight. Not ever. We just exist here together." Her eyes softened even more, and she let herself lean a little closer, though not too close. It wasn't about physical contact, it was about trust, about letting someone into her world without words or promises. It was about finally allowing herself to feel something without running from it. I didn't think I could feel. Normal again, Lena admitted, voice barely audible. Not after everything. But sitting here? With you? It feels like maybe I can. Ethan nodded. I know that feeling. The one where life finally feels like it's moving in the right direction, even if slowly, even if quietly. The storm outside raged on, but inside there was warmth. A calm, steady warmth that neither had felt for months. They didn't talk much after that. Words felt unnecessary. The silence carried more than conversation ever could. She sat a little closer, head resting gently on his shoulder, trusting him to hold the space without demanding anything. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just let her rest there, knowing that this moment was fragile, beautiful, and fleeting. Hours passed. Rain softened into a drizzle. The storm didn't matter anymore. Neither did the past. All that existed was the here and now, the quiet apartment. The soft light, the slow rhythm of two hearts recognizing something new, something real. Finally, Lena lifted her head, brushing damp hair from her face. I think. I've been waiting for this for longer than I realized, she said softly. A place where I don't have to fight myself. A place where I can just be. Ethan's voice was calm. You have that now? Here. We'll figure the rest later. No pressure, no expectations, just time together. She smiled faintly, and for the first time in weeks, it was a smile free from fear or hesitation. She let herself exhale completely, trusting that being present didn't mean being vulnerable in the wrong way. She could finally allow herself to feel without shame or worry. I didn't think a knock could change everything, she said quietly, almost to herself. But it did. It changed how I see life, how I see connections. Ethan looked at her, feeling the same truth. That single moment, that first knock, had started something neither of them had expected. A slow, steady movement toward trust, toward understanding, toward possibility. The night stretched long, but they didn't notice. Time felt suspended, like the world outside no longer mattered. There were no questions, no demands, no pressure. Just the simple understanding that two people, both hesitant and scared, had found a place where they could feel safe together. When Lena finally stood to leave, it was with a promise silent but unspoken. She wasn't leaving to escape. She wasn't leaving to protect herself. She left knowing she could return whenever she wanted. And Ethan didn't have to say anything. He knew she would come back. He knew they were both ready to let this connection grow, slowly but surely. I'll see you tomorrow, he asked, voice calm but hopeful. Lena's lips curved into a soft smile. Yes, tomorrow. She stepped into the hallway, disappearing into the dim light, leaving Ethan standing at the doorway. But for the first time, he didn't feel lonely. He didn't feel empty. That storm, that heavy rain, that fear of distance, it no longer mattered, because something real had begun, something neither expected, something neither could ignore, and for the first time in months, Ethan knew that life wasn't about starting over anymore. It was about starting something new. Together, the beginning wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, gentle, and steady. And it was enough.